guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with my top books of 2021. These are all my romances. I do have a separate video coming for my historical romances. I had 21 on that list. I have 12 on this list with like 6 honorable mentions. I'm just going to run through the honorable mentions and not say anything about them and then get into my top 12. I am so excited about these books. I am not making a 2022 goals video, but one of my biggest goals of the year for 2022 is to read more indie romances. Almost every single one of these books are indie published, yet probably more than half of my reading are traditionally published books. So I need to stop trying to read what everybody else is reading that I see on like Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and just read indie romances. And I know there are tons of people who do read indie romances, but then I see, oh well, this popular book came out and this popular book came out, and I'm just like, stop trying to do that and just read the books you're super hyped for. So I did just start reading Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman for a reading vlog, you guys. Literally obsessed. And that's one that I put off reading last year because I was trying to read all these other books. So I need to read indie this year. And also, shout out to my mom for buying me this for Christmas. It is an orange cheetah print Sherpa hoodie, and I love it. Like, look. It's just perfect. My mother, she knows me. It's so soft. I thought it was fun and I wanted to wear it today and show it off to you guys. So Mom, if you're watching this, thank you so much for my fabulous sweatshirt. Okay, I am going to go and get through the books. So for some honorable mentions, I have A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor by Catherine Moon. I'm definitely reading more of this author in 2022. There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. Serial Killer Romance. Loved it. Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. Mafia Romance. Loved it. How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams, a traditionally published romance that I really did love. Ever After Always by Chloe Leese. I love a good marriage and trouble romance, and this one was fabulous. And one I don't talk about enough, but The Red by Tiffany Rice was one of the most surprising, I was gonna say shocking, but I guess it wasn't shocking. It was one of the most surprising romances I read in 2021. Definitely one of the steamiest romances I've read. Just so intriguing and definitely unique, and more people need to read it. Okay, so I'm gonna get the obvious ones out of the way. You guys know there are some books I literally would not shut up about this year, and a lot of these I actually read during the summer. I just had a fabulous summer reading all the romances I wanted to, especially when I was on vacation, and around that time I just literally would only read on my Kindle or reading audiobooks, and I was living a great life. So the number one, these are not in any particular order, but this one probably is number one for me, and well, I don't know. I have like a top 2 where I cannot decide between them which one I loved more, and you guys know who they are. So this one is one of my new favorite authors of the year, and this book just like affected me so much because of the angst, and I'm just like obsessed with angst. I need something to break me and break the characters and put them back together again. It is Forget Me Not by QB Tyler. I actually talked about this nonstop, that QB Tyler sent this copy to me. She signed it for me because I had the exclusive edition, I think from Bell Book Box, and QB Tyler's amazing. I love her so much. I was obsessed, and I know a lot of you have read it because of me, and I'm so happy you've gotten to read it because of me, because I love this book. It is a marriage and trouble amnesia romance. I typically read amnesia in historical romances, but I read it in this one. Blew my mind. He's in a car accident. He doesn't remember the past like 5 years of the relationship. They're literally like weeks away from divorce, and he wakes up thinking they're like madly in love still, and they have to work through their problems. Super angsty. They don't make the best decisions. He did cheat on her in the past, and we get the scene of it happening, so know that going in that there is cheating in here, and it's just heartbreaking, and I loved every second of this book. I want to reread it again. I read it on audio, and I want to physically read it and maybe tab it, because I don't tab my books, but as one of my favorites, I would maybe like to tab it. So I don't know. Who am I? Wanting to tab books? What? The other one that was like top tier, I was reading it and I was like, this book is ripping my heart out. It is an age gap romance. It's one of my favorite authors. I think one of her books shows up on this list like every year since I've read her. That is Gianna Darling, Inked in Lies. Literally obsessed. It is Nova and Lila's story. It is book 5 in the Fallen Men series. You can read them as standalones technically. I do advise reading them in order though, because there are like things that they reference in these books. But Nova and Lila knew each other growing up. So Lila's older brother, he's like a lot older than her, like 12 I think years older than her. Her older brother and Nova are best friends, and so she grew up around Nova, and then something happens to their parents and they end up being pretty much adopted into Nova's family because they live next door to each other. And Nova though doesn't live there that long. I feel like it's like months go by and then he moves out. out, so they don't live together, they don't grow up together, but she has always had a soft spot for him and starts to like him. And we actually then have scenes when she's in, I think, her early 20s, and he is like, I'm not good enough for you, and like kind of breaks her heart on purpose. And so then another few years go by, so she's like, I think mid-20s when this book takes place, and it's amazing. I cried like within the first 100 pages of this book, and I don't really cry in books that often, and this one just gutted me and so many emotions, and I love this book so much. Like one of my favorite books of all time, and obviously one of my favorite books of the year. There's also a lot of mystery going on with the motorcycle club that Lila gets involved in, and she puts herself in dangerous situations, and I already want to reread this book too. Like I do not reread books ever, and I want to reread this. That's how much I love this book. Another one that I just like needed this book when I got it, and I could not stop thinking about it, and that is Forbidden by Carla Sorensen. Carla Sorensen is a new to me favorite author, and this one, I'd seen her like Bombshell Effect, Marriage Effect books come out. These were on audio. I feel like a lot of my top books are also that I read on audio. They were just so good. This one is book 4 in the series, and I actually skipped around. You can definitely read them as standalones. I read book 1 and then book 4. I really enjoy book 1, but this one really gives me culty vibes by Mariana Zapata because of the relationship dynamic. She is in her 20s. I think she's like 24, 25. She works at a gym. She's not the youngest. Is she the youngest? I don't think she's the youngest, but she gets the last romance, and there's 4 sisters. It's like they all 4 get a book, and her older brother has custody of them because I believe their dad passed away and their mom is not around, and so he's a football coach, and so they all grew up like in the sports world. She really loves like teaching exercise classes and like self-defense things, I think, and she works at the gym, and the new owner just so happens to be an ex-fighter who she was obsessed with growing up. She had his posters in her room. She would like doodle her name as Mrs. his last name. She had like just a celebrity crush on him, which is similar to Colty, and then he ends up being the owner of the gym and her boss, and he's a single dad, he's a widower, and I really loved his character, and I loved his daughter's character, and she actually ends up babysitting her, I believe it's her brother's kids, so like her nephew, I think, and shenanigans ensue there, and like they kind of bond with her nephew and his daughter, and I just love this book so much. Like I again want to reread it because like I remember the feelings, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so good, and it's on audio, so I could just pop it in and listen to it again. But this one, you don't have to read the series in order, but it's such a good age gap romance, and like it's not super forbidden, but it's kind of forbidden. If you can't tell, I have a thing for age gaps because like this one's an age gap, this one is, and like 2 or 3 more on my list are age gaps. I just love them. Okay, so I'm just doing it in order as I wrote them down because they came to mind that way. So the next one is Twisted Pride by Cora Riley. Again, I have a couple mafia ones on here too because I love mafia romances, and I was super in the mood for them, like I said, this summer, and I need to get more into them again because I read this entire series back to back to back as audiobooks, and I said this when I talked about it, I think in my favorite series video of the year, which I can link down below. I did already my favorite series that I read this year, and this one was one of them. I, for this one, sat on my bed and just like stared at the wall listening. I am someone who's constantly doing things, so I love like listening to audiobooks while I clean, while I do laundry, while I sew for my Etsy shop. I literally had nothing left to do, but I still wanted to listen to this audiobook, so I continued to listen to it. And this one's a kidnapping romance. We love it. We love those dark romances. He kidnaps her on her wedding day, and she is from the rival mafia, so he kidnaps her to get revenge, and she has a twin brother, and I really loved her dynamic with her brother and how she was so loyal to her family, but she was kidnapped by Ramo and falls in love with him. And I loved it so much. We got to see the guys from the previous books who I love and their romances, and this one was just so good. And it does have a trope I don't like, but I loved it in here. And so this one, just like, I could not stop reading. I'm obsessed with it. Everyone told me this is the best in the series. It is the best in the series. Obsessed. And I want to continue on, but I'm nervous because I know people don't love it. But my friend McKay from O'Hay's McKay, she actually loves the later books in the series, especially I think the youngest brother doesn't get a lot of hype around his book, but she loved it, so I might continue on with the series. I don't know, but perfect. So the next one is one that, just thinking about it, I'm like, I just loved listening to this audiobook. And so the next one is My Life in Shambles by Karina Halley. I feel like I also always have a Karina Halley book on this list, and last year it was One Hot Italian Summer, which was amazing. This one was a lot more emotional, and it's a fake dating romance, which I feel like is really overdone now, but I really liked it, and it takes place in Ireland. I love Ireland. I've been there twice, and so I just feel very nostalgic reading romances that take place there. And so our heroine loses her boyfriend, her job and I believe her apartment like all at once, and she never goes out and does things that she wants to do, and her sisters had planned a trip to Ireland and are taking her along with them, and so they all go and have a good time, and she's at a bar. It's New Year's Eve and she sees this like brooding guy at a bar and everyone's already gone up to him and he like shoos him away. She decides to shoot her shot. He denies her, but then he changes his mind. And so they spend the night together, and then his father is dying. So know that going in. Like, his dad has a really bad, I think, health condition, and so he ends up asking her to be his fiance, fake fiance, to go home to his dad. And our hero ends up having to deal with something health-wise as well, so it's very, very emotional, but I loved every second of it. Like, give me all the emotions in my romances, and I will love it. So I really love this book. Another series, I'm just gonna say the whole series. It is the Mind F series by Christy Cunning. Unfortunately, this author did pass away this year. I just discovered her this year, and so this series, she has a couple pen names, and this series I was obsessed with. Like, I even told my sister to read it, and she read the entire series as well, and she normally doesn't do that. And so this one is a serial killer romance. Second serial killer romance that I've talked about in this video, but she is a serial killer and she is killing off the men who wronged her in her past. And now throughout the series we do get to see what had happened to her and why she's deciding to take out all these men because they did something extremely horrible to her. And our hero is a FBI agent who is a serial killer profiler, so his job is literally to track down serial killers. So he's put on her case, but he's also put on another case that comes to affect her, and it is amazing. I love their romance. I love the suspense in here, and I loved the fact that she literally has to hide the fact that she's killing men from her boyfriend who is trying to track her down, and it's so good. I love their dynamics. Every book has a cliffhanger, and that made me want to go and read the next book right away. I typically don't finish series within a year. I do not do that, and this one I read back to back to back. I just was obsessed. So if you have not yet, check this series out. Then we have Crow by Isa Varelli. This one, again, I love this book, but I have not continued on the series because I'm horrible at it, except for the Mind F series. But this one is a mafia romance, and our hero is Crow, and our heroine's best friend goes missing, and she knows that her best friend was at this bar that's owned by the mafia. So she decides to try to get a job there, and she's been like training for it, so she literally like enters a fight and beats a guy. And I was just like, you are amazing. I love it when our heroines can fight and like hold their own. That usually only happens in like fantasy romances, but it happened in here, and I was just obsessed. I love her, and I love how she held her own. She wasn't some like helpless girl in a mafia romance, and things go from there. And we literally have a scene where he breaks down the door and kills any man that touches our heroine, and I love that in a hero. I just really love this book, and it really set up the next romance as well because we get to see other characters and their romances. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm definitely picking up Reaper this month. It's on my TBR. I wrote it down in ink in my bullet journal saying read this book this month, and I'm someone who needs to check things off, so that is big motivation for me to read that book this month, but definitely one of my favorites of the year. The next author I think is literally always on this list as well because I'm obsessed with her and every single thing that she writes, and that is Real by Kennedy Ryan. This one is her forbidden romance, and it is a Hollywood romance, and our heroine though is in a biopic about someone, and I believe that the audiobook actually has the songs from the movie that she's playing in, so highly recommend checking out the audiobook. I just read it physically because the audio was not out yet, I think, or it was only available on Audible, so I couldn't access it. I read this as soon as it came out. Lacey and I actually got to interview Kennedy Ryan on Lacey's channel for our book club, so I will link that live show down below if you want to check it out. But this one I loved. Our hero has been burned in the past by romances. He's a director, and he's been burned by romances with actresses, so he is like, not happening again. But then he discovers our heroine, who is an understudy on Broadway, and he's like, she is the one for this movie I'm doing. Let's get her. But they don't want to start a romance because then it's like she's sleeping her way to the top. Did she really earn it for her skills? And she doesn't want to be known for that. But also we have chronic illness representation in here, so our heroine is dealing with a chronic illness, and I really loved how that was explored in here. And our hero has dealt with his loved one experiencing a chronic illness as well and passing away from it, and so he's dealt with that before. I just really, really loved the emotions behind this book and the forbidden aspect and a little bit of a grumpy hero. This one just had everything I love in a Kennedy Ryan book, and I can't wait to see what she has in store for us in 2022. Another one, I have 3 left, but this one I literally don't shut up about, and I know some people don't love it, which is okay. One of my friends read it and she didn't like it, and I'm like, it's fine. But it's Don't Kiss the Bride by Carrie and Cole. This one is an age gap romance and it's a slow burn. So I think a lot of people told me to read it. It's also Marriage of Convenience. And I was like, yeah, sure, okay, but it was long. But I listened to the audiobook, another audiobook on this list, and our heroine's 18 and she comes from a not so great home, and she has an eating disorder which is caused because of PTSD. So I won't tell you what it is because that's something that you need to just experience yourself, but know that going in. What happens is she needs help, and the hero ends up seeing that she has car trouble outside of her school, and he is in construction, so he's like, hey, like, let me help with your car, like, you look like you need help. And so they strike up a friendship. Then he realizes she needs medical help, and so he's like, you know what, I have insurance, marry me and I'll get you the help you need, because she's not on any insurance, her parents don't have insurance, it's a bad situation. So they get married, and it's definitely friends to lovers. Like, there is no romantic connection between them when they get married. They're not interested in each other that way. But then she moves in with him, and because like he makes her, because, well, not like forces her, but he's like, your home situation is not good, please come to a safe place. And so she moves in with him, and they slowly start to fall for each other. And I believe it's his aunt and uncle, it's some family member that he visits and brings her with them and brings her with him. And I loved their interactions and how they talk about their relationship, and I just love the slow burn friends to lovers that this book was, and the Marriage of Convenience it was, and it was just so good. And it's an age gap, he is like 30 and she's 18, but I love this book. Oh, I skipped one. I have 3 more now left. I skipped one. The next one is The Pool Boy by Nikki Sloan, and another age gap romance, but with an older heroine this time. Our heroine just got divorced because her husband cheated on her, and she is hanging out at her pool, and the pool boy walks in, and it's their romance. But what makes this taboo is that it is her best friend's son. So they gotta hide their relationship. But what I loved about this book, Troy is in his 20s, so he is older. It's not like he's like a teenager. He is in his 20s. He is so adamant that he loves her. He is like, this is it for me. I'm serious about this. He's like, I'm not just some kid trying to have fun. He's like, I genuinely like you. And the fact that this had like an actual good romance that was so deep, I loved it so much. It wasn't just a fling. He was really falling for her and let her know that. He was not ashamed to admit that he was falling for her, and I love that. And there was also a secondary plot line where it was with both of their jobs, and I really like that, how they had to connect in that way as well, because I read the first book in the series after reading this one. You can read them out of order. They're not really connected all that much, but that one was only focused on the forbidden romance with not a lot of external plot. This one did have more, and so that's why I absolutely love this one. I love the romance, more so because Troy was just so smitten with her, and I loved it. And she had to deal with being in a relationship with someone younger than her and how people in society would view that, because if it's a guy who's older, they're like, yeah, go you, but if it's a woman, it's like a different kind of outlook from society and judgment from society. So I love this book a lot. I didn't expect this video to be so long. So the next book I have, I think, is on everybody's list, and you're probably annoyed seeing this, but I just loved it, and it is one of the 2 traditionally published books on this list. I save them for last. So it is The Love Hypothesis. I listened to this book on audio. I loved it so much. I think like half of these were audiobooks, which is really interesting. I'm gonna keep track of my stats next year of audio versus physical books, but this one is a fake dating romance. It's in academia, and I just loved everything about it. I think that their romance was adorable. I loved Adam and how he was just kind of misunderstood by everybody. He was very closed off, so people just thought he was this mean, grumpy professor, and he wasn't. I think he's a professor. I don't know. He has his PhD, and he's the one like in charge of reading people's like dissertations and like helping people getting their PhD, and I don't know the lingo. I'm not in higher academia, but they have to fake date. She had gone on a date with someone, didn't really like him, but her friend likes him, and so in order for our heroine to show her friend that she's over that guy, she kisses the guy who comes in the room, which is Adam, and they fake date, and it was just so cute. I loved how she slowly started seeing things about him that she was falling for, getting to know him, breaking down his walls, seeing his friends who genuinely cared about him and understanding why they liked him. And there are scenes in here that have to do with sexual assault, so know that going in. Near the end, there are a few conflicts that have to do with a character trying to take advantage of our heroine, which is a big conflict at the end, so please know that going in, because this just looks like a happy, fun, go-lucky rom-com, but it does have a darker tone to it with that aspect, especially with women in just like business and academia in the first place, just being a woman in a male-dominated industry. So know that going in, but I love this one just like everybody else. And the last one is sneaking in here because I just read this past week and I just thought it was so amazing that I wanted to include it on this list. And it might be because I just read it that I can't stop thinking about it, and I don't know if it would like live the test of time, but I just really love this one and I just smile every time I think about it, and I loved everything this book did, and that's The Charm Offensive. This one is one I listened to on audio for a specific video that's going to come out next week, and it was just so good. It's an MM romance and it has to do with The Bachelor. I used to love watching The Bachelor. I watched it all through high school and college, but then I hated what the show became, so I stopped watching it, and this one is basically like about what the show became. So it's everyone wanting to go on for fame and social media and like to be the next Bachelor, to go on to the next show like Bachelor in Paradise, and I hated people going on there because I feel like when I watched it, people were really going on it for love. Like, this was before social media was like giant, but this one is like Prince Charming, I think is what the show is. And so Charlie goes on the show, and Charlie has OCD and anxiety, and it's really bad sometimes, and people don't understand, and it made me so angry how people treated him because of his OCD and anxiety and how they talked to him. And I know this is like a real life occurrence that people with OCD and anxiety deal with, of people being extremely rude, but Charlie has to have a better image because he basically lost his previous job because of his anxiety and OCD, and so he is now on the show, not to really find love, but to have a better image. And so our other hero is Dev, and he is one of the producers, and he is like Charlie's handler, I guess. He's put in charge of Charlie to help him, and it's a very slow burn romance, and they slowly start to fall for each other. And Charlie's never really had a romantic relationship before. He doesn't know like what his sexuality is, like if he's aromantic, asexual. He talks about that and what kind of identities there are. Dev is gay. Dev's had a past relationship, I think it was like 6 years, with someone else on the show that ended badly. Dev also has depression, so we have that discussion in here, and they slowly fall for each other. But Charlie's dating like 20 women, and then he's falling for his producer, and it's just kind of messy but so charming. Like, they are so cute together, and it just had so much that it talked about that was so real, and I really loved their discussions. And they were talking about going to therapy and letting people in or just hiding because of the things that they have, and I love this book so much. The romance was so cute. I love Charlie's friends that showed up in here, and it was just amazing. The ending was amazing. I love this book so much. I can't stop thinking about it, so that's why it's on my favorites of the year. Those are my top 12 romances of 2021 with some honorable mentions. Let me know what your favorite books of the year are. I would definitely love to hear, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.